Dutchman versus Kingsman, the Golden Circle.
Howdy, it's me! Just, the umpteenth fat guy with facial hair on the internet telling you what you have to think about things. Spoiler warning, if you're watching this, I'm going to assume you have seen Kingsman the Secret Service, like the first part, because otherwise this would be impossible to talk about. Kingsman the Golden Circle, I told you I would get back to that name today, is a 2017 sequel to the 2015 movie based on the Secret Service comic books done by Mark Miller, directed by Matthew Vaughn and co-written by a bugger I lost her name. Basically the people that did the first one did this one as well, and they bring everybody back from the first film, and I'm quite surprised as to how many side characters are actually in this one from that last one. Unfortunately, this film, The Golden Circle, is more of a license to kill, which means, if you're not familiar with the Bond films, basically Eggsy, our main character, is basically left to his own devices. I'm quite surprised as to how much of the first film is of relevance to this one, because so many things, obviously with the return of Colin Firth, like you would have to have an explanation how somebody just pops back up from being shot in the head. Unluckily enough, this is a universe where being shot in the head is something you can just pop back up from if you have enough high-tech spy gear that can do that kind of thing. This movie wastes no time. The previous installment started off with 2 action scenes, one in the Middle East, one in Argentina if I'm not mistaken, and this one starts off in the middle of London, and it's a chase scene with a black cab and cybernetic limbs. But when you think about what's the one thing that everybody remembers of the first film, it's the fight in the church, and there is just the one scene that makes you think of it, and it has a similar song setting, but it doesn't quite reach the same level, mostly because of this. We've been here before, we've done this already, so everything in this film that tries to be new but not too far, it kind of falls a little bit short. When I say to bring back everybody from the last film, I quite literally mean this. The main henchman of the film is Charlie, who was, the upper class git that didn't like Eggsy in the previous film. That was at the final conclusion in that film as well. You'd think he'd have his head blown off, but no, little retcon, he's still alive, he's just missing an arm, and well, it's been replaced by a robot arm. And this immediately brings me to a couple of things. The fight scenes in this one, I'm not quite sure how many did this in the last film, but they seem to, the camera work seems to go along with the action a lot more. It still does the little bit fast forward and then a second of feeling the connect, while still very jaunty. It still works, but if there's a punch being thrown, you can actually see the camera going along with the fist, instead of the camera having the entire shot already done in advance. Often there's a wrestle throw or a backflip or a leg lock, and the camera roars along with the person who's receiving it or performing it, which leads to a lot of 360-degree type shots, and they're very present all over the film, but they're never really detracting from it. So we all know sequelitis, right? When the film has the need to outdo its predecessor by upping the action, increasing the explosions, by bringing in a bigger villain with more acting chops, or just a lot more fights. It's weird to have a film which does that, but then doesn't really. There are a lot of CGI shots which make some things look more fantastical. Okay, fair enough, the previous film featured a beer glass being flung by a handle of an umbrella directly at the front head of a man and the entire church scene, but here it's very obvious at one point when people are hopping from car roof to car roof, or when there's a huge action scene involving a ski lift turning around very quickly. Well, it feels less real. Like, I love this word, I always come back to it. It feels less grounded. It feels a little bit more fantastical, a little bit not quite there. And it's not to say that it looks bad, but it just stands out a little bit. Speaking about the church scene, it is the standout from the last film. It is the one thing they all remember. And there is one fight towards the end which is reminiscent about it, but it doesn't quite deliver the same kind of mania, not the same kind of oomph. Probably because it had been done before. It wasn't new, it wasn't engaging. Like, you weren't like, oh shit, what's going on here? You're like, okay, this is cool, but it's nothing we haven't seen before. The additional casting with the Statesman being like the Kingsman in the United States with a more stereotypical cowboy feel. This is great. It gives us Channing Tatum, it gives us Jeff Bridges, it gives us the guy who played the Viper in Game of Thrones, some horrible names. No, you didn't just see me switch camera positions because the autofocus was fucking up. The Statesman gives us Channing Tatum, Jeff Bridges, it gives us the guy from Game of Thrones who played the Viper, whose name I can't remember because I'm horrible with names, and Halle Berry, who I didn't know was in this film. They make for a fun additional cast. If it wasn't for the fact that, aside from Halle Berry, Channing Tatum and Jeff Bridges aren't in this film very much. Especially Channing Tatum, who was on all the big billboards as like, he's in this film. So we're left with Halle Berry and the guy who played the Viper in Game of Thrones, Pedro Pascal. So yeah, I'm not saying he's bad, he still managed to pull off the charming southerner with a lot of manners because that's how his mama raised him very well, but it's just, he's nowhere to be seen in the promotional material. Why not just put him a little bit to the forefront? Because basically Pedro carries most of the action alongside Taron Egerton. Taron? I'm horrible with names. And Colin Firth, and this is not a bad thing because you get to see basically the American side of their equipment. British use like bowler hats, they use like these Stetsons and baseball bats and baseballs, and it's all brilliant and it's clever and it's fun, but he's nowhere to be seen. You should have just said like, well, he's going to be in it for most of the thing, so just put him on the poster as well. We have to talk about Julianne Moore as the villainous Poppy, whereas Samuel Jackson was like the new America, the new money, like the Steve Jobsy figure. Julianne Moore's Poppy is the retro America, like wholesome American diners and cinemas and bowling alleys. She's in hiding in the middle of somewhere in Colombia because she's also running a drug cartel. And this kind of devalues her as a villain, whereas Samuel Jackson just went around, he was trying actively to find out who the Kingsmen were, and he met with Colin Firth, and it's like that was playing with the James Bond cliches, because James Bond often meets the bad guy before the bad guy gets to enact his evil scheme. Here, Julianne Moore is just talking to a henchman and killing him because he's failed her for the last time, and then she kills another henchman because he's failed her for the first time, and it's just her talking to her underlings, mostly faceless mooks, and only two of them have names, and the other one is Charlie, who has already been set up as a secondary antagonist of this film. She does have a celebrity kidnapped, and I'm not going to say who because part of the fun is finding out who it was, but there's very little interaction between the two of them. She's just kind of there to set the events in motion and to give us exposition and not much else. Seeing as Colin Firth is back, he's not immediately back as the character. They build up quite a bit from the first Kingsman in this film, and depending on how much you like that film might have an influence on how much you like this, because I've never seen a film that hinged so much off its plot off of what they've done before. Sure, there's callbacks and continuity, and this is always fun, but we get like a reference to a scene in the first film about 10 minutes, 15 minutes in. Fine, that's good. But then about 30 to an hour or so, an hour, I'd say, like it's past the midway mark. There is another reference to that exact same scene, except different characters, and it's just more of the same. It's like we've done this, we've already made sure the audience knows we're still watching a sequel. There's a weird plot bit where Galahad Sr., Harry, Colin Firth, thinks he sussed out a double agent, except we never get a real resolution to that. Of course, this has consequences to the plot, but it never gets resolved. We never actually find out whether or not Colin Firth is just imagining ghosts, or if he's legit got things by the right end. There's a lot of character deaths in this. Don't expect everybody you like to come out of this film alive, which is a bit bad because the last one hinged so much on giving you that shocking swerve that Colin Firth would just get taken out mid-film like that, or just before the actual climax. So they brought him back, but they still felt like the need to give us like similar blow beneath the belt, you know, that gut feeling like, oh come on, I can't believe that they just did that. And you think they have you there at the beginning of the film, but then they do it again towards the end, and it felt very ham-fisted to me. They could have done that so much better. It's a waste of time and a waste of character, to be honest. The climax is cool, but it involved too many robots. I didn't like the robot-y aspect to it. It was very Fallout, and I know it gives some cool scenes, like a person being torn into two in the reflection of sunglasses. That was a cool shot, but for the rest, it's like, okay, fine, we're living in a high-tech spy world where membrane gels can cure lethal head wounds because a bullet just went through your brain, but don't worry, we got this gel that finishes you right up. But somehow a fully functional robot bipedal that uses weapons, or robot dogs, those didn't quite work for me. The end scene, like I said, is a bit like the church. It's their big blowout thing where they take down a huge amount of people, a huge amount of goons, and it's still entertaining and it's still fun. But unfortunately, it's never quite as good as the first one. If this had come out now without Kingsman the Secret Service having come out in 2015, I don't think the naysayers of this film would have been as vocal as they were now. I still recommend this. If you enjoyed Kingsman the Secret Service, you'll still thoroughly enjoy this. I'm just hoping they got enough nanites to bring back all the supporting cast they killed off in this film. You probably might not agree with me here, because this movie has not been getting a positive reputation all across the board. It's been, you know, being dealt with quite negatively. But I'll be honest, if I thought it was shit, I would have told you by now it was shit. Because I'm not going to bat for Kingsman the Secret Service as the best film of all time. You're allowed to disagree with me, which is why God invented the comment section. There's a box down below here with a thumbs up and a thumbs down. Give me a thumbs down, give me an insult, follow me in social medias. Twitter, Goodreads, MySpace, LinkedIn, I'll probably forget one of these somewhere, Facebook and Tumblr. It's a lot of places where you can come and laugh at me, because I need to be laughed at. And don't forget to subscribe, because I'm off to the market to sell my quilts. I am Dutch after all.
Pennsylvania Dutch is a language that the Amish people speak. It's our first language, and all the Amish people speak that.
Haunting you.